Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Small Business Marketing podcast where we make marketing stress free for small business owners like you. I'm your host, Prati Kaufman. Today, we have one of the most amazing person I know as a guest, Neha Govil. She is a leadership coach and a strategic facilitator. So, welcome, Neha. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and we what really this podcast is about is to make marketing, a little bit easy, a little bit, stress free because for small business owners, because there's so much to it. There's so many things. There's so many platforms, so many ways to do things. So what we are here is to discuss. Like I really talk about the importance of having a marketing strategy because to me, you can't get to some place you want if you don't know where you're going. And to me, marketing strategy is that thing. Maybe it's not the right direction, but at least you have a direction and you can pivot. And I want to talk to you about that because you've done marketing without it and you've done marketing with it. So I thought you would be a great person to really help others understand how it impacts your marketing. So why don't you let people know a little bit about you, what you do, and then we start.
Yeah. Thank you for this. Thank you for inviting me here. I think I've had a very love-hate relationship with marketing, and you've been a part of both of my phases with that. So I'm glad that we're able to kind of talk it on your podcast today. So you know my work. I'm a coach. I'm a consultant. I'm a facilitator, and I use visuals to enhance all of those three experiences that I create for my clients. So for me, when I started looking at at my business, it was I'm going to do everything. I'm going to be that one person. I'll wear the multiple hats, and I'll be an expert at everything, and I'll do everything. A lot of it came to me from just that minimal understanding of marketing and what that meant for a small business. So I thought showing up at networking events and handing out my business cards was marketing. I thought that showing up on a social media platform, just writing a post about whatever I felt like writing about on that day was marketing. So I was doing all of that, and with little or no results really. And I think that's what made me a little bit frustrated about it, and started to think maybe it's not for me, and so I'm going to just sit back and see how things come up. And on the side of it, because I enjoy creating visuals for my everyday learning, for things that I want to talk about, I kept doing that. But because it was not aligned to an end objective, I thought it just became more of a hobby than a business. And I just seem to have settled into that notion of, okay, things will come when they have to, and, I'll just go with the flow.
Yeah, I think we do that like a lot, right? Business, even though we want to make money, it kind of, we always say, I always tell a small business owner, if your business is not making money after 3 years or 4 years, then it's a hobby, right? Like then you're not, because at the end of the day, we do business so that we can support our goals, our dreams, our lifestyle, whatever that may be. If not, have fun with it, right? So I get it. And I think it's a very common conception. People are very confused about marketing. It is not easy to understand, right? Is it social media? Is it networking? But everything is a marketing. I actually have an episode which I will be doing. What is marketing? And I've done that before. And we're going to dig deep. But to me, marketing is everything you do. But again, it has to be aligned to a certain objective, right? Sending out visiting card, showing up on a social, it's all part of it. But where, is it combined? Is it all leading to the same common goal? And I think that's what we forget. We do things in silos and they are not interconnected. So you went through this whole thing and you did everything on your own. And then finally you're like, okay, I'm going to invest in marketing strategy. Okay. So you already said, what prompted you, right? Because you were just frustrated, you're not going anywhere. Okay. So tell me a little bit about like when you do the strategic planning, right? The process of it and, what did you learn? Like what areas you worked in and what was your whole marketing strategy kind of look like?
Yeah. So as I work with my clients, most of my clients are kind of on that stage where they're making decisions about their way forward. So if they're individual leaders, they're making decisions about their leadership style, about their next career move. When I do workshops, it is again on specific topics that help the team bond and communicate better and work towards a common objective. So between both of those processes, I continued to feel like I was preaching the same things to my clients, where I was like, play to your strengths, and everything else can be done by somebody else who's an expert at this. And I feel like I wasn't doing the same thing. So, the first thought when I was kind of overwhelmed with, when my kind of work started coming and I was doing it, and with that overwhelm, I was like, I'm going to look at things that are not directly adding value to my business. So the thing that came up was administrative tasks. And I said, I'm going to do the strategic and the marketing work myself. As I started doing it, I realized that I can only do things that I'm an expert at. So I'm an expert at creating those experiences for my clients where they can come, they can brainstorm, they can think through, they can create a plan for their next steps and follow through and celebrate their success. But what I'm not an expert at is selling that. I'm the product in my business. It's like a service based business. I'm the product, I'm the brand, but I don't have that recall or that recognition at all. So I think that realization of the fact that if I can acknowledge that I'm not an expert at this, my next logical step is to find someone who is an expert at this. And so, then I started scouting for people who I thought are experts at marketing. And then the next step is like a whole other story of kind of how do you find your person, because that's sort of also an important aspect of marketing, especially when as a servicepreneur, I'm the brand, I'm the product, and I'm introverted, I'm shy, so I don't want to show up, and the whole kind of story that goes behind it. And I'm going to close this thought by just saying that even when it came to marketing, I thought I was focusing a lot on the what and how without really going back to the why. And that for me was, I think, the big missing link, which when I started working with you, I thought that was the first thing we addressed. And that helped connect so many dots in terms of why I was not getting the results, why I was feeling frustrated, why I was not willing to make the kind of effort that I wanted to see the results for.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do a lot of marketing. I think one of the reason you settle because I'm also working with the energy of you, not just
Yes,
yeah, it's a
yes,
marketing strategy, and it's the same for everyone. And to me, anybody who is doing a marketing strategy, right, start with your first, not even a business goals, start with your life goals, right? Like you want to build a business around your life, not your life around the business. So if you don't know what your life goals are, if your life goal is to spend more time with the family, and you have decided to do something which will take 18 hours a day, like that's to me is a clear no already, right? Hey, I'm not going to do it because it's taking away, or am I willing to compromise, and how long, right? So it's kind of
yeah,
that why drives you of the way you want your life to be, and then you kind of also define yes, no, all of that. I think it's become so much easier to make a decision about it.
yes, yes,
So we are going to pause for a second so I can look at the question. I'll just
yeah.
tell them to not do this, right? So it was perfect, and then we're going to talk about what marketing channels. Because I think that's going to be an interesting question because you're doing the same marketing channels, which is the greatest part, but how different it is. So it's going to be
Yes.
interesting. So okay, recording again. So Neha, tell me about like okay, you did the whole strategy, correct? And we will come next. We'll talk about the components, as brief overview of it. But when you did the marketing strategy, what was your marketing channels before you did it, and what was your marketing channel? Did it change after you did the strategy?
The surprising answer to that is nothing changed in terms of marketing channels. It was this exact same channels. It was still LinkedIn because that clarity existed that all my possible and potential audience and clients sit on LinkedIn. Like that's the platform, and that's the surprising part. Like we did not change the platform at all, but I think it was, like you said, the energy around it, how I was approaching the platform and how it was responding to me. So my mindset about LinkedIn was that it is my sales platform. Whereas for when we worked through the marketing strategy, what changed was that instead of sales platform, I think LinkedIn became our branding platform, where we were creating that brand with thought leadership. And I'm very intentionally using the word "we" because I also want to highlight that it was just me earlier, just this person doing this, making some random efforts, like it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And then when we started working as a team, and you brought your team into the picture, and they understood what I was looking for, what my objectives were, I think we started to build a brand. So it was the same channel, and it was just that we were approaching it differently now.
That is so amazing because I always, again, one thing, people think marketing is sales, and I said, never. Marketing is to build a brand. It's you build it to the point where people come to you. And I remember you mentioning that recently that somebody came to you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And that's exactly what, it's not a lead generation unless you're doing paid ads. But I really believe marketing is to build such a strong brand. When people think of buying something within your expertise or industry, they only think of you. That's it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that out because uh, my the way I run my business is that I have multiple kinds of services that I offer, which may or may not be linked to each other. And it's really hard for me to pick one and say, that's my favorite or that's the one that I want to progress with. So this person I knew from a very different coaching workshop kind of, thought leadership sort of context. So she did not know much about the visual side of my work in our conversations together. And we connected on LinkedIn, and for something totally different. It was going to be like a women's empowerment workshop, that kind of thing. And while that was on the back burner for a little bit, for whatever reasons, there's another opportunity that came our way, which was all about visuals, which was all about creating sketch notes and live graphics during a conference. And she reached out and said, "Hey, I noticed that this is also what you do." And I said, "Yes, I do." And then, we started talking, and now I'm kind of, a week away from actually being at that conference, my first sort of international gig. So I'm very excited about that as well. And just getting out as we're speaking now, all the paperwork and things are finalized. So I am heading out next week, and I'm very excited to be like at that point where I'm being recognized for everything that I want to be recognized for without being salesy, because that was my biggest like roadblock with marketing. So helping, like you said, understanding the differentiation between marketing and sales, and them both being significantly different, and you don't have to there's that effortless way of doing it, or like you say, the stress-free way of doing it. For me, I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, I think marketing traditionally has always been like that. Sales was never a door-to-door thing. If you look at the history of sales, okay, what people do, and they still do around the world, like you go to a shop, right, and you buy what you want. They're not coming to your house and knocking at the door and saying, "Buy from me." So, and that's what I think it comes from the, living in India, or like even observing all of that, right? McDonald's is not coming to you and saying, "Hey, buy from me." Or even a street vendor who is selling vegetables is not coming, and a hawker just hawks on the street. "Hey, I'm here." Right? Ice cream truck just comes and rings the bell. Who wants to have ice cream? They'll do it, right? So I think we forget the marketing always traditionally has been that way, right? The sales happen because of the brand they build. One person prefers preference over other person because of the relationship, because of what we know and all of that. So I'm glad we are doing that together where, it's not icky. Sales is not icky. Sales is fun. You just have to show up. So that's a great thing. So when you're doing that, right, marketing, the components of marketing which were really important to you, right? It's a long process, but some of the things which really helped you really get clear about where you're going. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think primarily I'd pick three. So one was the why. How do the marketing efforts that we're talking about stem exactly from how I want to show up? What are the results that I get from my clients, and what are the kind of things I want to talk about? What things am I comfortable talking about? So all of those topics. Two was the roadmap, which is, here's where we are right now. Realistically, here's where we can be in 3 months, and, so on. So just kind of having a roadmap to say, this is like step 1 to 10, what we are going to do within what time frames, who's going to be responsible for what, what part am I playing. So I think it was a lot of like that co-creating, which really helped me be a part of everything, and not a prescription that, here's a playbook, take it or leave it. So I think it was the co-creation piece. And I think the third one is that ongoing, we got your back kind of situation. So we're not like we met in the beginning, created this roadmap, now everybody's out there doing their own thing. So we're having those regular touch points. We have a team group where we can kind of share conversations. We're sharing inspiration from other content that we're seeing, which we are relating to, and how can we do better. So I think like just that continuous investment, which I see from the team, which, we're celebrating little things, the top leadership coaching voice badge, like that came as such a surprise and so quickly. And it was such a testimonial also of like how, you keep believing in your work. And then I could see why you're so confident about, hey, this is going to work, let's keep at it.
Yes.
And so then when you very quickly start to see those results, or this, this opportunity that has come my way to represent myself and my brand like internationally, I think for me, those are like really quick wins within a span of 3 or 4 months of having started to work together. I think that, those three, so the why, the roadmap, and then the continuous kind of collaboration and being on the team, I think those three would be my top three. There are so many more,
Yeah.
but those are my top
I
three.
think things working out for you is also because you have believed. I always say I cannot make, there's no magic. Honestly, there's not a single person in a marketing who can say confidently that I'll give you this result, including me. It's all a trial and error, right? It's like having again a Google map, right? I need to go from point A to point B, show me the way. And on the way, you may find, a traffic jam, and you may find your car broke down, and things happen. And I think it just prepares you for all that, and you kind of know, and also just because you know where you're going, you may have many ways to get there. So you're not stuck on, oh, this is the only way. Like, oh, if I want to, maybe I'll switch here and I'll take this different exit, and maybe it's longer, but I'm going to get there eventually. So I think that's the
Yeah.
testament to your faith that things will work out, because unless a business owner believes in their own, and that's a mindset piece. If unless you 100% believe in what you're doing, even 80%, like, you have to show up believing in yourself for things to work, because I don't think any marketing will work if we don't have a belief, a simple thing in
Yeah.
ourselves. So I think
Yeah.
that's really on you. Yes, all of this help, but if you didn't believe, sorry about that. But if you didn't believe in yourself, I don't think anything would have produced the results. So I have like one more question for you, right? No, actually two more questions. So one of the questions is, you were very clear about your customer base when you started, right? Do you see a shift in that? Because I remember when we were doing, I kind of, was like, no, we are not going to sell everything. We are going to sell only main things, right? We're not going to talk about 15 things you do, We will let people know slowly, but we are going to just start with this, and we're going to just stay here for a long time before we kind of add. So did it, like, how was that for you, right? And then do you see an impact because of that in your audience?
I think, when I started, when we started, it was hard for me to pick really, when you say, okay, this is great, pick one. This is great, pick one. I think that was the hard sort of part. But knowing that picking one doesn't mean that I'm letting go of everything else. It's just that for the moment I'm getting this. So that happened in terms of the audience as well. Like we just started very clearly with like, mid to sort of mid senior level leadership. That was sort of our first kind of goal, people who lead small teams and, are on their leadership journey on their own, but also develop their teams. Like I think that was our sort of, target audience. And I think we've already moved from there, the kind of engagement that we are seeing on our content is coming from everywhere, different kinds of people. The other day, somebody sent me a message about our introvert leadership post that we'd done, and then another one about the Gen Z leadership post that we'd done. So I think they're both personality types. What we're starting to talk about generational workforces. We're starting to talk about introvert, silent leaderships. I think we're curating now content that is branching from our initial where we thought we are. So that's the point where we're kind of listening to our audience in terms of what kind of posts do better, and then maybe leverage that information a little bit. So I have analytics, for example, was one thing that I wasn't looking at. I was just looking at like purely the engagement numbers, how many likes, how many comments, but I didn't know that LinkedIn gives you that option of really going deep into your analytics and seeing what demographic, and that has helped as well. So broadening our audience a little bit, but starting with narrow.
Yes. Yeah.
So we are where we thought we will be, but we took a step back and kind of zoomed out to zoom in. That's it.
Yeah. So, if you're a small business owner, you're listening to it, right? Because we have such a small budgets. We have shoestring budget. And when we go broad, all we are doing is wasting money, as we don't have millions of dollars or $100,000 like big brands to figure out, what's working and not. So I always say, if you're a small business owner, start narrow, right? The narrow gives you, it takes time and effort, and, you kind of feel like, oh my God, I have so much to offer. But it also gives you an insight on who is buying from you, who is right for you, and all that. And then you, based on their feedback, you can then slowly start to expand on your offerings, on your content and all that. It just, you're going to reverse, I say, the funnel. Funnel is like this, typical funnel. Like I say your funnel should be this, right? Get narrow, that get wide, and kind of keep working from that, because we don't have the money to be this wide ever. As a small business owner, so make the most of your money, and that's why we start narrow. And again, I think there's a lot in the marketing. So if you're trying to do marketing, one thing you gotta really do is market research, right? You gotta stay on top, knowing what's happening around you. It's going to be important, right? So let's say about workforce. Now, one of the biggest struggle of workforce is we have different generations working together with very different ideas. So we didn't think about that routing when you start, right? And you're like, wow, people are talking a lot, right? And we are facing that question time and again, like, how do I work with a 20-year-old? I'm 40. I feel like we're in a different world. So you kind of have to, okay, then maybe we should write about that. So I think your audience do tell you what to do next if you listen to them always. So that's a great thing. You really summarize it. Like you start narrow and then you're kind of going wide and talking more about different things, different relevant things to the audience, not just because you like the topic. It's more of like, let's be thoughtful about it. So one last thing, right? I know you talked about that just briefly, and and then there are two things. So one thing, metrics, right? You were looking at metrics before, right? And you're looking at metrics now. How that has shifted for you? What metrics are you using? Because there's no direct conversion for you, right? It's not like, hey, you spend this money, you get this many leads. So how are you, saying that you're successful? And what advice, how would you wrap it up if, to a small business owner, tell them, if you were to do a marketing strategy, like why, what's the advantage, or, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think metrics, I am now looking at more visibility metrics. I'm also realizing that we live in a world of scrolling through, people are just consuming like quick content. So if it's making sense, if it's something that you can just pause for a moment while you're scrolling in the morning or in the afternoon. So not everybody has something to say to what you're saying. They're probably just absorbing the content. So I think having that knowledge to know that it does not always have to be just engagement numbers, which are, how many likes, how many comments. So I think that for me was good to know. I'm reaching out a lot more to my second and third contacts, which makes me believe like I'm sure I'm reaching more of my first contacts also, because that's sort of how you connect the dots to know. So I think looking at purely just the numbers, but also making sense of what that data is trying to tell you. So I think that helps me in our biweekly calls where we're sort of looking at those numbers and trying to make sense of it, comparing what it was before, what it is now. Has the demographic shifted? So what are some of the geographies? Experimenting with the time of posting. So, all of those things have really helped me. Staying hands off has really helped me. And I think that's when it comes to advice to other small businesses. I think so many times, because what we do is so close to our hearts, usually like the work that we do, it's very difficult to share that with someone, having somebody help you with the writing, having somebody help you with your graphics, helping somebody with your posting, how you're showing up on social media. So even just by sharing, like, when we worked initially on our strategy, the marketing strategy, so many times it's just me saying some of these things aloud, or when you ask me these questions, I'd be like, that, yeah, I did not think about it like that. Or so help me detach from my business and look at it as an outsider. I think that is the role that marketing strategy played for me, and that helped me not just with the marketing but also with my how do I work, or how do I create more repeatable, scalable work. So I think it just kind of extended a little bit into like the operational aspect of work as well. The other thing that I will always say to small business owners is that outsourcing or hiring a partner does not mean that you're not going to do that anymore. It probably means you're going to do more of it. So it's not like you're doing all the marketing for me. I'm probably putting so much more intention and thought into it than I did before, because now you have a partner to do it with, and it's a wonderful feeling to see somebody else invested in your success and in your business. So when you work with someone as a team, I can see that for you and your team, that now I feel like there are so many more people who are invested in this being successful, and not just me. So I feel like now I have a team, and just knowing that helps you show up
Yeah, I mean,
differently.
you got time now to kind of think, right? You say to make more mistakes, to figure out, how do I create new? So you need that time. If you're always doing, there's no time. I feel like it for creativity to sit and stare at the wall, or have time to just what next? How do I want my business to grow? Because you're just like we all
Yeah,
are spinning in that. I just need to make enough money to survive, instead of like, okay, that's going okay right now. I just need to now figure out how I want to grow, and that's a beautiful place to
yeah,
be in, where you have time and space to think about it, right? No, it's just tough otherwise, right? If you don't have any free time, how
yeah,
you keep spinning like you want to get off it, but you have to be on the hamster wheel. You can't get off. At some point, I think you just have to get off and say, I'm going to stop spinning, even at the cost of, right, whatever it is, and then kind of get
yeah,
back with the intentional. So I think that's all it is. You're right, having somebody who can brainstorm with you, somebody who can talk to you. It's not every business owner in this world. I swear to God, I have not met someone who doesn't know what they're doing, right? Who don't know what their audience is. They don't know what they're really good at, right? But putting it all
yeah,
together is not easy, right? So there's not a single place. So I think this podcast, what I want to tell you is, yes, if you're starting out, I know it's hard to hire. It's so hard. So we are going to put the template together, but when you're starting out, really focus on one thing then. Don't go crazy. Really start narrow. no, do all you can on your own. It's totally fine because it's going to teach you a lot about you, who you are, what you do, the way you work. Because even if you're going to hire someone, if you don't know how you work, it's going to be very hard to tell them how you work, right? So you got to know your business really well to outsource. But try not to spread too thin. Don't get caught up into vanity things, right? Oh, I gotta, like I was talking to a business owner and they wanted to launch a podcast. I said, first sell the go, get audience, get some customer who are paying you before you start investing time in a podcast, which is not going to bring anything immediate, right? So when you're starting out, you gotta make money. If you don't make money, honestly, it's going to be so hard to do all the things you want to do. So focus on that one thing in a very nice way, and then the world is yours. So we are going to continue bringing all the knowledge, all the things on making sure you are learning, all our audience is learning what you can do on your own, but in a very focused, very intentional way so you can make your business thrive. So, do you have any last words of wisdom, Neha, for small business owners?
I think all I want to say is that, no matter what you're doing and how you're doing it, it's so important to have fun. So even if you're looking for a partner to do this with, a marketing partner, I think matching your values and, somebody who works with the same value system is so important to look out for.
I agree, and that's a huge part of by the marketing strategy. Which I again, we are going to add the template in every episode because we don't work without the values. So that's another episode, another thing one day. But yeah, your values should drive everything that you do. So thank you so much, Neha, for showing up and sharing your experience of marketing strategy. It's amazing. I think more and more as we talk as small business owner, I think people will realize it's not that hard. Nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for making it easy for me.
Thank you. Anytime. I'm so happy, and I'm going to